Dear future generations, I think I speak for the rest of us when I say, sorry. Sorry we left you with our mess of a planet. Sorry that we were too caught up in our own doings to do something. Sorry we listened to people who made excuses to do nothing. Cut the beat. I'm not sorry. This future, I do not accept it. Because an error does not become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We can redirect this.
I do not have green fingers. I do not wear sandals. I'm eating meat and not seeds all day. I'm just a supply chain professional, Apex master trainer, and made a promise to my daughter and my 3 boys. In that part, in that promise, you will be one element in the fulfillment. And do it for my kids, do it for your kids, but take one thing you want to change. And whether it's buying another product, or separating your plastic, or reducing fuel, I don't care, but take one thing and change it.
Hi everybody, it's good to see you all back. After 500 days, when we first met at the conference in Kiev, I kept my promise. I separate my plastic. I'm taking care of the environment. I hardly don't fly. I drive less. I work at home and I'm doing good. What did you do? Most likely the same, because something happened. Something happened what we couldn't foresee. I recall I was in Riyadh, 23rd of January, I believe, providing a training, a workshop on sustainability for Arla Foods. And one of the cheesemakers mentioned and said, yeah, that's not going well there in China. It's going out of control. And he mentioned, Paul, take care. If you have to fly, wear a mouth cap and wash your hands. Why? Because infections are going into the body with your mouth, with your nose, or in your eyes, where it's not protected. And I thought, I take this advice, I store it in my head, and I will see what will happen. And a few weeks later, I flew to Tallinn in Estonia to provide a speech, a keynote speech on a conference over there. Of course, about sustainability, about how we can make the world better. I remember his advice, but I didn't wear a mouth cap in the plane. I just went there, had a great time, and went back. After that, there was a big event in my home country, the Netherlands, and it's called Carnival. And what nobody could have foreseen is that it was the start in our country of what we call that COVID pandemic. What we couldn't even imagine was that at that moment, March 12th to be precise, the complete country went in a lockdown. We have seen all the images of Europe, we have seen the images of Wuhan in China, and we thought it will be there for 1 week, maybe 2 weeks. But now still we see all those travel restrictions. And could we have foreseen that?
Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes. Now, part of the reason for this is that we have invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. We're not ready for the next epidemic. But in fact, we can build a really good response system. We have the benefits of all the science and technology that we talk about here. These investments offer significant benefits beyond just being ready for the epidemic. The primary health care, the R&D, those things would reduce global health equity and make the world more just as well as more safe. So I think this should absolutely be a priority. There's no need to panic. We don't have to hoard cans of spaghetti or go down into the basement. But we need to get going because time is not on our side.
We are not ready. We need to get going because time is not on our side. Words of a great entrepreneur 5 years ago. And we did do nothing and the world suffered. Lockdowns, deaths, unrest and fear for a second wave. The estimated cost $3 trillion. Climate change became news 30 years ago. And why didn't we fix it? To my opinion, because we don't see it. Like the COVID pandemic, we simply can't imagine what is coming to us. In June 2019, I witnessed a debate between two Dutch politicians. One was presenting a future based on facts, on known effects on climate change. The other one was positioning it as pseudoscience, irrational and too costly, and we should not do anything to make that climate change, because it was not a problem. It's not surprising that the second one won the debate, because people do not see what needs to be done. They do not want to take the consequences for their own. But the facts already presented by Shell in 1991 are undisputed by scientists all over the world.
Reduced to global averages, it shows a rise of just 0.5 degrees Celsius. This could be due to some natural climatic change, but it does accord with computer models based on the known atmospheric processes and predicted buildup of the greenhouse gases. These models contain many uncertainties, but they forecast that by 2050, global mean temperature could have increased by at least 1.5 degrees, possibly near 4.
Good morning. Hello.
Do you have the heat on?
Is there a reason for the heat?
Well, it's 40 degrees.
Is there AC downstairs?
Because it's hot in here.
My kid is like overheating because this is out of control.
This may not sound much, but what the computer modelers are looking at is the possibility of change at a rate faster than at any time since the end of the Ice Age.
I think particularly over the ocean here, over the North Pacific.
Change too fast, perhaps, for life to adapt without severe dislocation.
These mid-latitude regions in the southern hemisphere.
What they foresee is not a steady and even warming overall, but alterations to the familiar patterns of climate and the increasing frequency of abnormal weather. No two scenarios fully agree, but their strange, mesmerizing images of possible futures have each prompted the same serious warning, a warning endorsed by a uniquely broad consensus of scientists in their report to the United Nations at the end of 1990.
The year 2078, I will celebrate my 75th birthday. If I have children or grandchildren, maybe they will spend that day with me. Maybe they will ask me about you, the people who were around back in 2018. Maybe they will ask why you didn't do anything while there still was time to act. What we do or don't do right now will affect my entire life and the lives of my children and grandchildren. What we do or don't do right now, me and my generation can't undo in the future.
What for sure is a fact is that the temperature will rise. The estimation is currently that by 2100 the rise will be 4.2 degrees. The plans we are having is on the other hand that we should have a scenario of 1.5 degrees by 2050. So there is a huge gap. And what we also know is that the measures taken in the short time will determine the long-term outcomes. So we have to do something. The other thing we know is that the most affected have no voice and have no vote. So what we are doing is not for us. It's for our children and it's for our grandchildren. Based on the current national plans, the predicted rise will be 3.3. So there is still a gap and we still need to do something. Most of the plans in reducing the temperature change by 2050 are focusing on a net CO2 reduction because that will have the highest impact. And if we are looking, you want to do something at home, of course, you can do a lot. You can do a lot to make it better. But what we also know is that basically the main impact we can achieve is reducing flying. It might sound ridiculous that I am the person who's pointing at you that you should not fly, that it's better for the environment. But in fact, it is. It's better not to fly. It's ridiculous that it's possible that I buy a ticket from Amsterdam to Copenhagen and then to Eindhoven. What is cheaper than going by train? So reducing flying is one of the things we can do. We can do by ourselves. At this moment, we see what happened in the COVID crisis. In the COVID crisis, the flying dropped down from 100%, over 100% to less than 25%. And of course, that has impact on all the airlines.
As the coronavirus pandemic grips the world, the priority is to save lives. As governments respond to the crisis with lockdowns and we travel less and consume fewer goods, there are unintended benefits for the environment. We've all seen the clips of animals taking over empty towns and cities, but the environmental impact has been so much bigger than that. Nitrous oxide levels are harmful pollution caused by traffic. They have been down around 40% in Italy's second largest city, Milan, when compared to this time last year. It's the same in cities across the world. Carbon dioxide levels have also dropped as countries produce fewer goods and use less energy. Carbon dioxide is the main cause of global warming. China is the world's largest emitter, pumping out nearly twice as much as the next country on the list, the US. Yes, in February, at the height of the coronavirus crisis in China, carbon emissions were 25% lower than the previous year. And burning of coal, one of the worst fossil fuels contributing to climate change, was 36% lower. So this is some much needed good news right now and gives us a glimpse into what a healthier planet could look like.
Undoubtedly, the COVID-19 crisis had a huge impact on the world. But on the other hand, it was a very nice experiment because we were able to look at what the impact was in that balance of people on one side, profit on the other side, the planet in the middle, and how the ethical parts behaved. It was something how we were able to evaluate the world's performance in a broader perspective, and how can we create a better business value on it. On the people side, of course, the health was the first priority. We needed to flatten the curve. But the impact was that we had to go into lockdowns in several countries in the world. And that, of course, affected the profit. Industries closed and everything went down. And how that balance is there for the complete planet? It was very good. But what we also have seen in all the crisis situations we had before, the impact is most likely temporary. But there's also good news. There will be changes. There will be lasting changes. Because people started to work at home and they find out that that is also a possibility. That we can continue working without a lot of travel. Board meetings are no longer on different continents because we have seen that we can do it in a different way. And hopefully that will be the opportunity we have for the future.
This is a key moment for us all, for governments, for businesses and individuals to pull together, to make sure that as the world emerges from this unprecedented crisis, we all make the right choices for a better world.
How you think companies can achieve the sustainable supply chain? So maybe we would like to hear from you directly.
First of all, if we are talking about sustainability, a lot of people think that's only about the environment, but that's actually not true. It's about how you will compete in the new world, because resources are not endless, and also, let's say, the life of the planet, the climate change, will also give us some things to think about. We are with a lot of people on this planet, and we are producing a lot, we are consuming a lot, and there's maybe also the first step where we should change something. Maybe it's that we have to rethink if we need to consume, if we have to change our consuming habits, what we are doing. Of course, all the marketing of all the companies is working on it to let us buy as much as possible, and take for instance an Apple phone, it's outdated after 2 years.
Yeah.
But in practice it's still working. So why should we do that? So the first thing of making things more sustainable is to look in how we consume things and what our habits are. Is it necessary that, for instance, my daughter, she's buying an iPhone who's in China and she pays $1 for it, including shipping?
Wow.
That's not a lot. And she's using it and throwing it away after 1 month and buys a new one. That's not sustainable. The second part we can look at is the number of the quantity of material we are using in a product. Is that needed in all the parts? We can first look at, for instance, in packaging. Some people know the chocolate after 8.
Yeah.
It's having 8 types of packaging layers to get to that chocolate. Is that really needed?
Yeah.
Do we have that part? And it's in all the products we are making. Do we need all the material what is in that product? The third element, that's of course, if we have material, then can we maybe use material what we can recycle, what has been used before, and we put it back in our products. One of the great examples in that one is Adidas. What they did, they used plastic what they cut out of the ocean, old fishing net. They made a new shoe from it, and that shoe is now sold more than 1 million times.
Wow.
And it's really a profitable item, because that's the other part. We always think that being sustainable will cost money. No, it's something you need to survive.
Yeah.
And if you do it correctly, then first you look, of course, at risk, because we may not use lead, or in our products we may not use all types of materials anymore, because they are harmful for the environment. So then sustainability is a part of risk management, of compliance. But if you do it correctly, what maybe Adidas is doing, they create value out of it. So that's the second step in that process, creating value to make sustainable products, and customers will come to you. In general, most of the products, of the future products, will use electricity, not the fossil fuels, and we have to make that change. One of the great examples, of course, is a company like Tesla, what changed the complete car industry. And nowadays they have it as a strategic direction. They do not make, let's say, conventional cars, but they do it in such a way that all the companies, all the car manufacturers have to change. And it's even that worse, that even
Ford is doing it, everybody's doing it, Audi, you name it, they're all doing it.
Yeah, and what you see, for instance, in car manufacturing is that an Italian company like Fiat is having problems in investments in making that change. They know it will end, and it will be more, and most likely the companies who are producing cars will be in the future somewhat different. On the other hand, what they did in car manufacturing is also looking at fuel consumption. It's in a lot of countries where fuel is very cheap, not an issue.
Like UAE, Middle East,
But in other countries, they focus on it, and that's also an example of using less energy in a process. Then we bring us to, the fifth element. If we have to buy something, why do we buy it in China? It needs to be transported, it needs to be produced over there, and maybe we can also do it over here. So if you want to change and make your company more sustainable, look around what is nearby. It supports the local society, and that's also an element of sustainable.
Shorter lead time, you can
shorten lead time, less risk.
Lower inventory, there's much more benefit, and I keep saying this, and I think I've done the analysis where people when I was in UK, if you do the wall-to-wall cost, right? So if you buy from Eastern Europe, being in UK, and buy from China, actually it will turn out Eastern Europe will be cheaper. Again, I'm talking cost to cost, wall-to-wall cost, including freight cost, air freight, basic cost of poor quality and all that, right? Anyway.
But if you are starting to calculate also, let's say, the environmental cost of moving the goods and the social cost of that it's produced in not the best environments, then your cost price will be different. And more companies are looking into that part of costing instead of only buying it for the lowest price. If we make products, we should use them more, maybe repair them more. And what we see in that concept currently going on is that products becoming a service. So I'm not buying a car and own the car, I'm buying the means for transportation. And it's a sort of lease construction, but they take care for maintenance, they take care of the complete process. And we see it more and more that we do not buy products, but we buy a complete service, like we're having internet service, mobile phone service. Also, example for instance, healthcare, the scanners in hospitals, they are not owned by the hospital, they are owned by Philips, and they deliver a working process. Every product more durable, that we do not produce it for throwing it away. Great example, of course, plastic. All the plastics bottles we create, we throw it away, and companies like Coca-Cola started with it. They have a target to reduce it and to replace or recycle it by 2030, every bottle they make. Last step, of course, if we have something and we cannot reuse it, recycle it, then think of a reasonable way of end of life. How do we get it away? In the end, we have to throw it away in a landfill, and that is the worst solution. In most parts, if we take for instance an example of office garbage, 99% can be reused, recycled, and is not going away in landfills.
How can we embed sustainability in our supply chain? Forward-looking companies operate on 3 different horizons at the same moment. The first one is that they want to manage risk. They look at compliance by greening today's supply chains. The second level is that they want to add value. They're optimizing within today's business models. That's a matter of operational excellence and leverage of relationships. The third level is that they want to create an advantage. They prepare and influence the next business model. And that's what we call the true leadership. That brings me to the end of my presentation. What we have seen is that we can do actually something about climate change and make our world more sustainable. COVID did affect it and proved that we are able to undo some man-made changes in the world. Furthermore, there are elements, steps we can take to make your supply chain more sustainable. And last but not least, how do we embed that in our organizations? How do we become true leaders in the world? Let's regard this crisis as a moment of opportunity, that we re-evaluate our business processes and actually look in what is important in our lives, the lives of our children and of our grandchildren. Let's reinvent our ways of living and prepare the earth for the next generation. So please, be safe, stay healthy and take care of each other. Thank you for your attention. See you next time.